Darren, great to see you. It's been a while since I've been in Australia. I've still got the really poor weather over here, and I'm missing it greatly, but it's good to see you. And thanks for attending this session. And I guess what I wanted to do was to kind of kick it off, first of all, by kind of just asking you a little bit about Yabbit. I mean, how long have you been in business? How did this thing all start? What customers do you serve? Just give us a feel for who you are.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I've been in the telco industry probably since, I'm going to say the late 80s. So in Australia here, it was still Telecom Australia when I started in the industry, and I was very, very green, and I went in, and I think it was still analog key systems at the time. I think the NEC AK Ranger might have come out back then, and it was a long time ago. So I've been in the industry for a long time now. I've always been between the carrier and the end user. So I've always had to solve the issues of what the customer wanted, not what the carrier wanted. So I think that there's definitely two different agendas there. And that is, one is the call, the click, and so on, and the other one is I just need this to work for me, and I need it to make me money. So the way that I came into the industry was to go out there and sell key systems to business, and I've been doing that for over 30 years.
And that was very much a direct model, was it? That was just users. Yeah. No channel program per se.
No, not at all. I was one of the partners. I used to deal with the manufacturers direct, and I used to deal with all the old technology and some of the things that we had to do. I'm pretty sure a lot of the listeners probably wouldn't even understand what they are anymore. So it makes me feel a bit old, actually, there, Scott.
And what were the vendors of choice that you had at the time when you started?
Oh, well, at the start it would have been NEC. I remember it was the NEC AK Ranger. The AK standard for analog key system. And I remember in the late 80s, they brought out the NDK 9000, which was the new digital key system of the 90s, and it was two-wire digital. So it goes back to then, and then from there I sold a little bit of Philips, a bit of Alcatel, Siemens, Panasonic, and when Panasonic first hit Australia, I jumped on board with that. It was a really good product back then. It was ahead of its time and very, very flexible with analog digital and whatnot. So they were very clever back then, Panasonic. The Japanese, NEC and Panasonic, were primarily my go-to. So it's amazing how the Japanese were the leaders back then, hey?
Yeah. And I say, Australia has always fascinated me as a market in terms of how advanced it is in many ways, particularly compared to the UK. I mean, the PSTN switch off and the move to full IP networks in the UK is currently, and I say currently, scheduled for 2025. I think we all suspect it will get pushed back even further from there. But you crossed that bridge in Australia some time ago, didn't you?
Yeah, we have. We lost PSTN a number of years ago now, so well before COVID, and really that was something that it had to go. People had to do it, and some people got cut off. So the reality is that carriers would cut you off if you didn't migrate.
Yeah.
So,
but I was going to say, I mean, that must have played some part into the massive success that you've had in Australia in terms of moving to hosted services.
Oh, yeah. Well, funny enough, I picked up Avaya as a product in the early 2000s. And it was just after Lucent and Avaya had come together. So the product that they used was the IP Office, which was originally a Lucent product. And I sold that for over 20 years. So I picked up IP very quickly. The technology in it was far more advanced than the Panasonic and the NEC. And it was, we could see where the future of telephony was going. I remember it might have been 2006. and I picked up a big deal with a large organisation that had like 75 offices around Australia. And back when we had SHDSL was the links, and they were 1 meg and 2 meg. So we used to have links that were put together for data and voice, and they were separated, of course. But you could also, back then, you could still run VLANs and whatnot on it, so it was pretty good. I remember winning that with Avaya, and I've always been one to look at innovation and look at things and what I can do, not what I can't do. And that was because if I couldn't have done it, I couldn't have sold it. And if I couldn't have sold it, I couldn't have made any money out of it either. So there was a real, we needed to make it fit. And we got really, I'm going to say, innovative and creative with it. So back then I linked a whole lot of IP office systems together and created clusters, and we filled that void, and we won the business, and we beat Cisco back then. It was a big moment for us. And that was before the GFC. So that was probably the thing that really tipped me into IP, because we went 100% IP. IP phones, links between sites were all IP. There was no PSTN. There was some ISDN links that were connected via IP into the sites. But that was probably when I first jumped onto, we need to be more flexible with this product, and we need to look at what we can do. So probably shortly after that, I started putting IP office systems in data centers in racks, and I started doing cloud, and that was back in 2011, Scott. So
well, again, to me, I mean, this is a story that is universal and worldwide, where it's entrepreneurial service providers that are the innovators in the space. That it's driven by, I guess, a desire to make a buck, and there's nothing wrong in that at all.
Yeah.
None of us are in it for the good of our health, really. But we see opportunities where we can take technological solutions, we can deliver those in innovative ways that customers benefit from. And it's always the independent service provider that pushes the envelope and makes, the kind of world a better place in some ways, driving the cost down for the end users or solving problems for them as well. And it doesn't surprise me at all that you would do something like that. But 2011 is way early, for those types of stuff. The Avaya thing didn't particularly work out for you, and you felt there was a need for something else.
Well, there's a bit of blood in the water there, so I'll give you a version of it. So I started to do a lot of IP when SIP came on board, and it came on board with a couple of carriers here in Australia, well before Telstra, and we started installing SIP instead of ISDN, and that would have been probably around 2013 to 15. And with the ability of putting the systems in the data center, we started creating our own hosted setup. So I would pizza box Avaya systems in the racks with SIP and everything, and eventually they would give us some software to turn it into a server, and then a virtual server and so on. But so we did that. Now in 2017, Avaya said, you do this really well. You're already onto this cloud thing. Why don't you take on our Powered By product? And so we did. So we took it on. There was probably 3 suppliers direct to Avaya in Australia that took on Powered By, and it was myself and 2 others. And within 2017 to 2019, we had put on, between us, thousands of endpoints. We'd picked up opportunities that would normally not be in our kit bag, because the lid was taken off the SME box. And these customers got better service than anything they'd ever had. Now, then in 2019, would have been late, I did receive a call from Avaya, and it said, I know we said that this was the product that you needed to sell and change your business to do, but we're making it end of sale.
The end of life the product for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got 3 months. I said, but hang on a second. We're billing this. They're our clients. They're in contract. What are we going to do here? and they said, well, we've done a deal with Ring Central, so you're obliged to, in the future, sell that product instead, and we'd like you to pass your customers on to us. We'll pay you a commission from now on. Now, we'd had a 40% growth year on year since we took it on. So there was not a chance in the world that I was ever going to consider going to Ring Central and giving them my customers and my goodwill and my future in when it comes to selling a business or whatever your future is. What's your why as a business owner? As a business owner, why did you start this? Why are you doing this? Why is your home on the line?
I think it's a really important point, Darren, is that, again, we talked earlier about the importance of the independent service provider and the value that they bring to the market and all of those kind of things. But I think traditionally as an industry as well, we have had, for whatever reasons, is that there's often been a desire for those same service providers to basically front everything in the brand of the IT or the underlying vendor, be it Cisco or be it Avaya or whoever it is. And I just don't believe in the modern world that we live in right now that is a required thing. If you are providing services to end users, you're billing them, they're paying you, you're collecting their debt, you're servicing their accounts and all that kind of stuff, is that you are the service provider. You don't need anybody else's brand in order to be able to kind of promote your services. I think people nowadays accept that technology and services businesses can take many, many forms and many, many shapes of forms. But as soon as vendors start to put their brand in front of customers, I think that starts to, in some way, lessen the relationship with the person that's actually doing the work. And it confuses people, and unnecessarily as well. And it can, for certain vendors, I think, start to be the thin end of the wedge, is that they start to build direct relationships with those end users, and then they start to disintermediate and move out the service provider that brought the business in the first place as well, because the direct model kind of works for them as well. Did you get a sense or a feel for that was what was happening at some point? Or was that
oh my golly, yes. The message, Scott, the message that it was is that they actually said they're our customers, and we said, well, hang on a second, I'm pretty sure I found them, I sold it, I installed it, I maintained it, and I built it.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure they're my client, and I'm pretty sure that the credibility of your organisation with a good CSAT record and whatnot is because that dealers like me did a really good job taking care of these clients and representing that product. We were branded with it. We put it on our buildings, right? We paid for the building. We paid for all of that. So at the end of the day, the credibility that they had as large manufacturers and whatnot was because of the unbelievable great work that us as vendors and companies that put our blood, sweat and tears into it, we were responsible for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And much of the innovation came from you guys as well, in the way that you would orchestrate the technology to solve the problems of the end users. And again, I think that's another thing, isn't it? Is that what you find with the technology behemoths is that they want to control everything, because ultimately it's a big scale game, and in order for everybody to make more money from it, then they tend to want to control everything as well, which allows their service providers, partners like yourselves, to have less influence with what goes on. You just become a commodity at that point, and then it becomes easy for them to be able to kind of move you to one side and talk directly to your users about, who do you actually buy this service from already. I would think if you went to, the prime example I was thinking about that is Microsoft. Is people sell Microsoft on a regular basis, and you ask end users who do they buy their service from, they'll probably say Microsoft, even though it's
not
a whole bunch of people who aren't Microsoft that aren't getting any credit for the hard work that they put in.
Well, there's another conversation in that with the new changes in that model, but I think something that's important is that when, as a business owner, and as I'm going to say, as a man and a father, I had a situation where I thought, well, what am I going to do? They've changed my model to the point where I can't represent their product anymore. All my website and everything is that. What am I going to do? And I believe that business people, we all need to have a mentor, Scott. We need to always have someone that we can go and share and trust, that's got some really good wisdom in that. And I was very lucky that I had that with a person. So I said, what am I going to do? And he said, well, if you go to another vendor, they're probably going to do the same thing. It looks like they're going that way. Mitel, Siemens, Alcatel, Samsung and Panasonic left. They just closed the door, right? I mean, what are you going to do? He said, build your own. He said, get something where you're not going to be competed about, that has a quality product, and build your own. And I thought, wow, you know what? I think I can do that. I'm passionate enough to go after it. So this was in late 2019, Scott, and we know what happened in early 2020. And I realised that Fort Lauderdale had the next IT Expo, and I thought I'd book it. So I booked it before Christmas, and I organised to go to IT Expo in Fort Lauderdale. And I hopped on a plane and off I went. I mean, COVID was just in China. It wasn't anywhere else.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we thought, yeah. And I ended up in Fort Lauderdale, and I had a look at everything. It was the place to see everybody in the market. And my scope was it needed to be better than Avaya, better than Cisco, better than Microsoft. It needed to be robust, and it needed to be something that I could rely on the supplier to support me. And I looked at everybody, and I always ended up back at the NetSapiens area. Yeah. And it was wonderful because Anand and Mamta Bush were there. And I met them and talked to them quite a lot. And they were probably, I'm going to say, they're probably part of the reason why I decided that I liked this product. And it was because of their cultural fit with my organisation. They were real. They didn't wear a mask. What I saw is what I got.
Yeah.
And they had wonderful credibility, because I remember the sponsor of the overall show was SkySwitch, used NetSapiens, right? And I saw it NTG Direct, and I saw a whole lot of people in there, and there was just, the brand was there everywhere. And I thought, wow, this isn't just an up and comer, this is here. And so I ended up leaving Fort Lauderdale. I'm pretty sure I got COVID before I left, and I might be why it came to Australia, I don't know, but I did get quite sick and came back, and then we went into lockdown and so on. So the world ended in Australia, and I decided, well, I needed to collect and find some money now, and I need to build this and turn it into something. And so I did a deal with NetSapiens and started building it in 2020 while we were in lockdown.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I think it is. I smile when you talk about Mamta and Anand, but you know, the founders of the business have set a tone throughout this business, which is one, I think, of humility, which is something that all of our partners seem to come across. It's not the big arrogant tech organization. It is a genuine, heartfelt belief that independent service providers are massively important to the industry as a whole, and they are not something that needs to survive. It's something that needs to thrive, and I think all of the founders in the business absolutely buy into that. And it manifests itself everywhere. You know, there's a kind of mantra that we use here, which is, it's not about us, it's about our partners. You know, we don't promote the NetSapiens solution. We try wherever we possibly can to listen to the partners, to take their concerns on, and then give them tech that they can then go to sleep at night thinking this thing will scale. I don't have to worry about it in the morning. I don't have to worry about NetSapiens going after my end users. Is that's the very core of the values that we hold. So now, I guess if it brings us up to where we are now, is how have you deployed NetSapiens? What are the target customers where you've had real successes with? Are there particular innovations that you're prepared to share with us? And I'm particularly interested in why Yabbit. Yabbit seems to be creating a bit of a buzz in Australia, and it seems to have, I think it's a great name for sure. But you're starting to build your own powerful brand in that market.
Yeah, well, that was something I thought, if I'm going to do this, I'm not going to do it half-assed. I want there to be a product and a brand that is known. Now, in all of IT, Scott, think about a product that is actually fun. It's very, very difficult to find a fun product in the IT area. And I thought, well, that was the first thing. I wanted to have a bit of fun. It didn't need to make sense, but it sort of did. I was with a marketing advertising person, and our scope was, we need to find a brand name that's going to represent this, that ticks the box of being fun, innovative, and also take it to the big guy, because that's my belief. And we ended up with Yabbit away, and it's IT. And then we said, well, what about Yabbit? And then I said, geez, we can get a bunny and have a bit of fun with a rabbit now. Imagine if we can skid into home base with a phone and whatnot. Let's do some fun things with it. And then all of a sudden, it started bringing a theme up. We say to people, come and join the Yabvolution. We instead of data analytics, we call it datamization. We're creating words to try and have some fun with the product and the industry as a whole. I've always found that IT, the more complicated that people make it, the more important it makes me feel as an IT person. But at the end of the day, our clients, if we flip it, don't want that. I get that our clients want it to be simple, reliable, and at work.
Yeah.
And if I can make it memorable at the same time, well, fantastic. So that's where it came from. Yabbit was about fun. It was about creating a brand that had the theme of bringing it to the big guy. We'll bite off more that we can chew. We'll innovate and say why we can do it, not why we can't do it. And we'll say,
And do we help in that regard in terms of the APIs that we give you to allow you to?
Wow.
One of the things that we like to think is that we play well with others. It's not about us. It's about giving you the tool sets to succeed.
Yeah. Well, when I saw also voice transcription, how we can have voice transcription in the recordings, and it's really accurate. And then we can take it further and go, well, I actually call it not sentiment. I call it empathy analysis, Scott. And I say that, imagine if we can take that recording and look at what's positive, negative, and neutral. And it's very, very simple, and the system does it. It does it natively. I mean, that type of innovation to me was, this is what I need to get involved in. It gave me permission to look at the API. What can I do with the API? Wow, the API I can embed into any other software. So I talked to someone in the medical game, and so, what's your software? How about we embed a soft phone in here and integrate the thing directly, right? Why don't we look at what we can do with the product to make automation easier? And the product with the open API is fantastic. And it's just the API and the area that we look at it, it even tells you how to do it for a novice. So it's just fantastic.
Yeah, it's a common theme, Darren. This is probably the third of these in this series that we've done, and one of the key things that we're seeing from partners all over the world is that there's a real, we've got, I think, strong economic headwinds in front of us at the moment. I think probably Australia's a little bit more guarded against those headwinds than most areas around the world, but undoubtedly, with a cost of a rising cost of inflation that's there, is that people are going to have to get more out of whatever they've got. is you're going to have to sweat assets. You're going to have to become more productive. And a common theme that I'm hearing from all of the really progressive service providers are how they're building solutions that increase the productivity for their end users. And it's really starting to drive some innovation in there with those back office system integrations and things like empathy analysis that can get to the truth that essentially for the end user, for them to make effective decisions upon, and all those kind of things. It seems to be happening all over the world now.
Yeah, well, I think that during COVID, everybody went through, how can we mobilize and do it quickly? And all of the amazing functionality of phone systems over the years was thrown out the window. Just make it ring. Mm-hmm. And then that's what happened. And then the race to the bottom products came out. And because it would work, people went, yeah, okay, let's do it. Wow, it's cheap. But I've always found that when things are cheap, there's actually a lack of value. The good thing about the NetSapiens product and Yabbit is that there was so much value. The scope I had was it needed to be better than Avaya and Cisco and the others. I needed to make sure that if I was an up-and-coming brand, I needed to be better than them. I couldn't be less. Mm-hmm. So I see its posture as being in that enterprise area. It can do tens of thousands of extensions for organizations simply and easily without any complication. I mean, I hear and I see all of the what's the good thing about cloud, and that is that, you don't need any hardware or anyone to maintain it, but it seems to be the opposite when you go to an enterprise customer and they've got an IT team that has to support their VoIP platform. I mean, I look at what we do with Yabbit and it's outsourced to us. They don't have to do it. I mean, it actually does solve that box, and when something needs to be done, you can ring someone. I know it's a worldwide organization, but who takes care of it again?
Yeah. And you've now got yourself on some government frameworks, as I understand.
Yeah. We got into the Queensland in Australia here, Queensland government supply panel. So there's only a few people in there, vendors in the telco area, and Yabbit has been very successful there. And the noises from the government is that they want us to disrupt the incumbents. They want us to do what others can't do. So the theme of what we put together in the first place is actually being taken on board, and they're looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the technology is about as perfect as it can be for government solutions. The huge resilience that you've got inside of there, the security that exists within the platform. I think the ability for it to play well with other technologies as well. So, big central governments and local governments can start to take control of, most of them tend to have a sock drawer of technology choices that they've done through various different procurement cycles, and then being able to bring those under one umbrella, sweat some assets at the edge for a little bit longer as they start to centralize and move fully into the cloud, I think is a perfect example of where the technology lends itself. And then if it's then delivered through a partner that can then provide them with, all of that, kind of customer support that they need while still passing some control through to them. It's the best of both worlds. It's a great solution.
Well, Scott, let's think about if you were, say, an Avaya dealer, a Mitel dealer, or a Cisco dealer. You've deployed a whole lot of phones to a lot of clients that see you as their service provider. Mm. Now, they're in a situation where change is inevitable in those areas. I mean, those Avaya partners, Mitel partners and whatnot have gone out there and done it. They've still got the clients. I mean, you think about that they can actually bring the incumbent phones onto the NetSapiens platform, onto Yabbit, right? And they can say, you know what, when you're ready to change the phones, you can change them. But let's give you more functionality and flexibility right now and take care of the investment you've already got. So it actually makes sense for these providers to say, we've got a base out there with some hardware. If we transition them, we've got this fantastic model, annuity model, where we can actually help these customers so much more in the future. And the best thing about it is the choices are with us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Darren, I think that's great for now. I think it's a brilliant to catch up with you as well.
Yeah.
I'd love to continue the conversations around more specific topics as well, kind of moving forward. But I mean, really, thank you for your time. It's been marvelous catching up with you and understanding how well Yabbit's doing there in Australia.
Thanks so much, Scott. Thank you for supporting us, and we'll see you soon.